New York Harbor has now come into lower Manhattan.
Rescuers made their way through flooded streets today.
When Sandy came along, we actually were looking out the window, seeing the water coming in from the East River over the streets into our building.
Al and Paula Nayowitz were watching the storm from their 7th floor apartment at Peter Cooper Village.
Marching up the East Coast, tens of millions of Americans in the crosshairs.
But the storm wasn't the worst part of it for so many New Yorkers. It was dealing with the aftermath.
We had no food, we had no heat, we had no hot water, we had no elevator, we had nothing, we had no power.
And in this case, challenges that were life-threatening if not for the watchful eye of concerned neighbors.
You know, they're so with it as being an elderly couple.
Joseph and his partner David waited for the power to come back on, constantly checking on the Nayowitzes. But after a week of no heat, no hot water, and no electricity, Joseph decided to do something.
We had gone down to the lobby with some of the people in the building. We saw how horrific it was and how the river was really coming over the bank. It was going up 20th Street, and about 9 o'clock is when the big explosion happened at the Con Ed plant. And with that, we lost all power.
So once Hurricane Sandy hit, this building started to flood. First the basement, then the first floor, then all the power in the building went out. The elevators didn't work, and that meant the only way to get up and down was through the stairwell. Very unrealistic for Paula and Al in their 90s to walk 7 flights. Joseph and David went looking for Plan B on behalf of Paula and Al.
I was able to talk to a very good friend who was very helpful and very instrumental in helping me find Cathay House.
And the facility was prepared.
We had a pharmacy here, we had the dietary here, we found out their diets, the food was incredible, and we all worked as a team.
But while the opening at the facility was identified, the challenge of transporting this frail couple was still ahead of them.
That was one of the things that scared us to death. And then I suggested that they call the fire department, who carried us down in the dark, and then they saved us.
And because of their age and their health condition, the challenges continued, because 90-year-olds cannot just set up on a shelter cot. They needed actual beds and a room.
But they could find a room for them, but not together. And that was like a deal breaker. They had to be, obviously, you can see, they had to be together.
So Cathay House found another bed to fit in the room, and the Nayowitzes were able to remain together.
We're very dependent on each other. The doctor downstairs and my cardiologist said, Paula, he would not live without you. He couldn't.
The Nayowitzes will remain here at Cathay as Con Ed and restoration crews work on the apartment building that is still flooded. But in the meantime, as long as Paula and Al are side by side, home can be just about anywhere, even without all the comforts.
Well, I'd like to get a big apartment with a mirror. Can you imagine a woman living in an apartment with no mirror?
I think the emergency now, is actually taken care of, but we need to build forward, because otherwise you can see she's still nervous until you know where you're sleeping for the next 3 months, you know.
But it's a blessing for us, you know. I don't have to worry about meals, except for vegetarians. They don't care about us.